Okay, my name is Sarah Almquist. I'm going to be doing a head to toe assessment on my patient, Drew Blake. Thank you, Drew. So I would start by doing my pre-steps, knocking on my patient's door, um, saying, "Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm going to be your nurse today. Is this a good time?"
Yes.
Yes. Okay, awesome. And then I would have my patient verify his name and date of birth.
My name is Drew Blake, and my birthday is May 15th, 1990.
Okay, awesome. And then I would just check that against his wristband or against his medical record, just make sure that I have the right person here. So then I'm going to just let Drew know, hey, I'm here to do a head to toe assessment. We're just going to be, assessing you, making sure that everything is working. And during my introduction and whatnot, I could be asking Drew questions such as, how he's doing, the weather, time of year, who the president is. And while I'm asking him these questions, I could just be checking his orientation, his alertness, seeing if he's all there and whatnot. Drew, do you know what year it is?
2020.
Awesome. Do you know who our president is?
Trump.
Trump. Good. Okay. And do you know where you are?
Yes.
Where are you?
The hospital.
Well, you're not at the hospital, but if he were at the hospital, I would give him a 4+ out of the orientation scale. So he's all here. He's good to go. So then, for his head to toe assessment, I would of course start with his head, and I'm going to be starting with his eyes. Perla. With this, I just want to make sure that his pupils are round, they're equal, they're accommodating to light. He's reacting to the light that I shine in his eyes. So for here, I just want you to open your eyes, and I'm going to shine a light in your eyes. It's going to be bright. Okay? You ready? It's okay. Okay. Good. Good. Okay, good. So while I'm shining the light in his eyes, I'm just making sure that his pupils are reacting to the light. And while I shine my light in the first pupil, I'm looking at that pupil, seeing how it reacts. I'm doing it again on the first eye, seeing how the other eye reacts. And what I want is that both pupils are reacting to the light. Okay? So then I'm going to do that on his other eye, shining at both, looking at both pupils, just making sure that they react, and they do. So then after that, I am going to check his eye accommodation. And with this, I can use my pen, I can use my finger. I'm just looking to see how his eyes follow my pen or my finger. So with this, I'm going to ask you, Drew, can you just follow my pen? Good. And with this, I'm just looking to see that his eyes aren't vibrating while he's able to follow the pen. I'm making sure that he can follow my direction. And I'm also kind of seeing if his eyes constrict during this. What should happen is that his eyes should smoothly follow my pen light and that they do not vibrate. If they vibrate at all or jiggle at all, that could mean that he's got astigmatism. So he's passed that test, and then the other test that I want to check with his eyes is just to see if he can follow all of my cardinal points. There's 9 cardinal points. I don't have to I don't have to make him test out on all of them, but I just want to make sure that he's able to follow direction and that his eyes can smoothly follow the pen. So I'm just going to ask Drew, can you please follow the pen? Okay, and he's able to do that. So that concludes my eye assessment. And Drew's passed all that. It looks good. Nothing abnormal that I need to document for him. So from here, I am just going to palpate his scalp. And with this, I just want to make sure that I don't feel any lumps or bumps or anything abnormal in his scalp. And this is also a good time that I could be checking his skin. I'm looking for his color and his integrity. I could also be watching his facial expressions and whether or not he can raise his eyebrows when he smiles or both cheeks lifted. You know, I'm looking for his facial nerves and seeing if they are all working correctly. So then after I successfully assess and inspect his face, I can be looking for his carotid artery. I want to, you know, first palpate it, and I don't want to be doing it with both hands. I don't want my patient to pass out. So with one hand, I can assess his carotid artery and then check the strength of it. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4 plus? And then check the other side, make sure it's bilateral. And then at this point, I can also auscultate his carotid artery. And what I'm looking for when I listen to his carotid artery, I want to listen for any swishing or clicking, and that could mean that there's an obstruction. So I just want to look for that. So then, after that, this is going to be a long video. You're going to be there for a while. So then I've successfully completed the head portion, so I'm just going to move down to the heart portion. And for this, of course, I want to inspect first. So I am just going to inspect his chest, his skin, make sure, like, you know, is my patient breathing correctly? Does it look like he's breathing? And then for the coronary part of the inspection, I can also check his lower limbs. And for this, I'm just looking for edema. So then checking his ankles, I can measure for edema. If it's present, I would want to measure how deep it is. And then on both ankles, I would want to measure his edema if present. And then I can also look for his capillary refills, and I can do this in his toenails or his fingernails. And what I'm looking for is, you know, hopefully what we want is less than a 3-second refill for capillaries. If it's more than that, more than 3 seconds for a refill, it can mean some difficulties in his artillery. And of course, while I'm doing this, I just want to check his skin, make sure it's intact, check the integrity of it and whatnot. So then after I do that, I'm going to want to listen to the points of his heart. And here is where I want to do 8 to man. I'm going to be listening to the strength of his pulse, seeing if it's bilateral, you know, looking for regularity in his pulses. So I'm going to start with his aortic valve, which is going to be in the second intercostal space to the left of his sternum. And while I'm here, I just want to be listening for the proper closing of his aortic valve. If I hear any swishing or clicking, that could be indicative of a murmur. And so that spot sounded great. So then I want to move to his pulmonary valve on the second intercostal to the right of the sternum. And here again, I just want to be listening for the proper closing of his valve. And it sounds good. So then after that, I want to move down to the Erb's point, which is going to be the third intercostal to the right of the sternum. And you want to listen carefully to this spot, because if you hear any murmurs or any swishing or clicks in this spot, this is where it is especially indicative of heart murmurs. And it sounds good. So then after this, I want to move down to the tricuspid mitral area of his heart. This is the 5th intercostal midclavicular space in his heart. And this is the S1 valve. This again, I'm looking for any swishing or clicking of his heart. I just want to make sure that his mitral valve is opening and closing properly. And with listening to his heart, if I actually listening in any of his pulses, if I didn't hear or if I heard any irregularities for 30 seconds, I would just want to listen to the apical pulse of his heart for a minute straight. And this is where I would want to listen just to make sure, for any irregulars. So then, my patient is sleeping.
I sound good?
Yeah, you sound good. So now I want to just listen for the GI system of my patient. So first I would want to inspect, with this I want to check to see what my patient's abdomen looks like. Is it distended? Is it flat? Is it concave? Is it rigid? Is it soft? So with this, I just want to look at my patient's abdomen, document that, and then the next thing I would want to do is auscultate. So with this, I would start with the lower left quadrant, where the appendix is and the ascending colon starts. And I just want to listen for about 15 seconds. I want to hear 5 to 30 bowel sounds here. And then I'm going to move in a clockwise position, going to the second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth, making sure that I hear at least 5 to 30 bowel sounds in each quadrant. And I'm hearing many sounds in each quadrant for him, so he's got no issues here. But for instance, if my patient didn't have any bowel sounds in any quadrant, I would start over again and listen for a total of 5 minutes in each quadrant. I just want to make sure, if there are no bowel sounds, I want to double check, because bowel sounds are not, the absence of bowel sounds are not a good sign. So then, after I have checked my patient's GI tract, I can move. I'm kind of going all over in order here, but I can move to my patient's respiratory tract here. And so I can start with inspection. I can start to see how my patient is breathing. Are they having any difficulties? Are they using any accessory muscles to breathe? Are they using their shoulders to breathe in or breathe out? And if not, if it looks like they don't have any issues breathing, I can just auscultate and, just double check that my patient isn't having any issues. So with this, there are 6 specific spots on the front that I want to listen to for the lungs, and it's in a Z pattern that I'm listening. And while I'm listening, I want to make sure that I'm not hearing any swishing sounds, any clicking sounds. Those can all be indicative of issues depending on where I hear them. And so I'll start off on the front doing the 6 positions, and then I'll move to the sides, making sure that everything that I do on the front for respiratory, I want to do the same on the back. And I'm listening for any sounds that are indicative of issues. So, and with this, I want to do it below the clothing, so I would have my patient remove their clothing. For women, you would have to remove the breasts, try to get them out of the way. During the front, it might be a little bit easier to hear women's lung sounds on the back just because they're breast tissue. But for men, I would start here. And I would just have my patient, breathe in deeply and breathe out. And again, depending on the sounds that I hear during my patient's breathing in and out, depends on the kind of issue that they're having, if any. That's okay. And then the next thing that I can do with my patient is have them speak. I can listen for their vocal sounds during this lung assessment. Listening to their vocal sounds can help me. It can be very indicative if there is an issue going on. For instance, when I listen in the same spots like I would for a lung, so here, and then the Z pattern. When I have my patient saying E during this evaluation, the E should be very clear up here. And the lower I go down, I should be still hearing an E all the way down. If at any point when I go lower, I hear an A through my stethoscope, that could be indicative of an issue for my patient. Another test would be the bronchophony, and the E test would be the egophony. The bronchophony test, I would have my patient say blue moon, and it should be quiet up here. It should be quiet. And the lower I get, it should stay the same. However, if it gets louder, the lower I go, that would be indicative of an issue for my patient. And then I cannot say the last one, but for the last test, I would have my patient say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And again, here it should be soft in the upper portion of my patient's lungs. And if it gets louder in the lower portions, that means that my patient has an issue in the lower portions of his lungs. So then from here I can go and check the... Sorry, this is a long video. You're going to have to be here for a little bit longer.
That's okay.
Okay. From here I can be checking the bilateralness of my patient's pulses. So I can start with his brachial pulses, making sure that they are bilateral, checking the strength. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4 pulse? And I can start with his brachial, moving to his radial, and then going to his femoral, his popliteal, and then the pedal pulses. I would do the top of his foot, and then I would want to do the back of his heel. And with this again, I don't want to also check the bilateralness and the strength of it. I also could be auscultating. And with this, auscultating the venous portions of my patients, checking the parts of my patients where the biggest veins run. So, his brachial, his femoral, checking those veins. With my stethoscope, I want to be checking for any swishing sounds that could be indicative of obstruction at all. Another thing that I want to be checking while I'm looking for his breathing is his chest expansion. And with that, I would ask my patient, depending on their mobility, I would have my patient sit up. And here's where I could be checking their chest expansion, checking their breathing. Here I could be palpating, percussing my patient's lungs in the back with my fingers and just tapping on my fingers. I could be listening, is this hollow? I want to hear some hollow noises, and if not, that could be indicative of a problem. And throughout this whole assessment, I would just want to be checking my patients vitals, making sure that my patient is aware, making sure that they know what's going on and checking their alertness this entire time. And I think I'm missing some things, but that kind of concludes my head to toe assessment for now.